What sounds like fiction but is actually a real historical event? Jean de Clisson, 1300 to 1359, was married to a French nobleman who was beheaded for treason by the French king. Enraged, she sold their estate and purchased 3 black warships with red sails, and became a pirate queen of the English Channel who targeted French ships. She became known as the Lioness of Brittany, and in her 13 years of piracy she would slaughter every member of a ship's crew except for one so that last survivor could go back and tell the French king what had happened. Why do I feel like the 1300s never get talked about? They focus on the Black Plague. Everything else gets lost by the wayside because that was so massive. Joshua Norton was just this random crazy guy from San Francisco who hated all this political nonsense that was going on at the time and figured he could do the job better at it himself, and thus the Emperor of the United States and Protector of Mexico was born. While he held no real power, the people liked him so much that they treated him like royalty anyways. Any currency issued under his name was treated like real money at many establishments. One day, he was arrested by a private security force because of his mental health, which enraged practically all of San Francisco. The police chief let him go because he had committed no crime, and Norton gave an imperial pardon to the guy who arrested him. After this incident, any police officer Norton passed would salute him. Another time, when a riot had formed and was getting pretty violent, Norton simply stood in front of the mob and calmly prayed, which managed to disperse the mob. And that's not even a fraction of the crazy stuff that he did. So, you're telling me the Emperor of San Francisco from Christopher Moore's books is real? Did he have 2 dogs as well? The London beer flood of 1814, a 22-foot-tall beer vat blew out and at least 100,000 to as much as 323,000 imperial gallons give or take flooded slum dwellings, killing 8 people. 5 of those people killed were at the time at a celebration of life service for someone else. I don't have the time to look for a link, but I remember a story of a big whiskey spill like this where some of the casualties were from alcohol poisoning, drinking muddy whiskey from puddles in the road. 1875 in Dublin, the night a river of whiskey ran through the streets of Dublin. In all, 13 people are understood to have died as a result of the fire. None of the deceased perished in the flames, nor did they die of smoke inhalation. Each succumbed to alcohol poisoning from drinking freely of the derelict whiskey gut. The article is worth a full read. Sally 7 Space Station Rescue. On February 11, 1985, contact with Sally 7 was lost. The station began to drift, and all systems shut down. At this time, the station was uninhabited. Zanabekov piloted his ship to intercept the forward port of Sally 7 and matched the station's rotation. After hard docking to the station and confirming the station's electrical system was dead, Zanabekov and Savinik sampled the station atmosphere prior to opening the hatch. Attired in winter fur-lined clothing, they entered the station to conduct repairs. Matthew McConaughey, is that you? During World War II, the U.S. military researched the idea of dropping bombs filled with bats with attached incendiary devices over Japan. A dental surgeon, Adams, who was an acquaintance of Eleanor Roosevelt, wrote the idea to her. He explained that bats would nest in the wooden buildings of Tokyo and then the delayed timers on the incendiary devices would go off simultaneously and cause a massive fire. President Roosevelt approved the idea for study. The military found it would be highly effective compared to traditional firebombing campaigns. The only reason the plan wasn't implemented was because the bat bombs wouldn't have been combat ready until mid-1945, so they used the atomic bombs instead. Highly recommend reading the article. So many crazy details, the entire thing reads as a surreal satirical article. Sergeant Stubby. During World War I, a soldier found a stray dog when training on the Yale University campus and took a liking to him. The soldier snuck the dog onto the ship when he had to leave campus, and when the dog was found by the commanding officer, he was allowed to stay because he had learned how to salute. Stubby was injured a few times during the war, but he was useful with alerting his squad of surprise mustard gas attacks and gunshots before the human ear could detect the sound. He also found and comforted wounded soldiers and caught a German soldier by the leg of his pants until American soldiers got to him. AKA the bestest boy to ever live. Reminds me of the Polish bear who fought in World War II and was promoted to corporal. A baboon who was employed to change rail signals. After initial skepticism, the railway decided to officially employ Jack once his job competency was verified. The baboon was paid 20 cents a day, and a half bottle of beer each week. It is widely reported that in his 9 years of employment with the railroad, Jack never made a mistake. An official investigation was initiated after a concerned member of the public reported that a baboon was observed changing railway signals at Uitenhage near Port Elizabeth. Can you imagine? Yes. In my mind, I'm imagining a drunk man on the train. He looks out the window, sees the baboon, looks back inside. Suddenly, shakes his head in disbelief and looks outside again. Sure enough, the baboon is right there. He looks at the bottle in his hand and then begins to pour it out. I've seen this trope a million times in a million different films, and I always laugh even if it's poorly done. Just the idea of a drunk man seeing something and doubting himself will never not be funny to me. Why? Looks like I picked the wrong week to stop sniffing glue.